and welcome to On the Ridge, Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center's web series, where we're bringing you stories from the areas of race, religion, medicine, and war from the 19th century and beyond. My name is Pete Mealy. I'm Executive Director here at Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center. And today is a very special On the Ridge because it is National Doctors Day. And I want to talk about three doctors that were here on Seminary Ridge during the time of the Seminary Hospital between July 1st, 1863 and September 16th of that year. We're here in the surgeon's room at Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center, but we're at a very different angle than you might see if you come into the museum and tour on any given day. We're inside, we're looking at the surgery that would be performed within the walls of this building after the Battle of Gettysburg. How did this building become a hospital? We're actually going to talk about four doctors today. I said three, but we're going to start with the man that set this building up as a hospital, Dr. George New of the 7th Indiana. As the Iron Brigade and the men of Cutler's Brigade are going into battle on McPherson Ridge to the west of where we're standing on July 1st, Dr. George New, who's on Wadsworth's staff, the division commander, is looking for a stout building to turn into a hospital to begin caring for the wounded soldiers that are going to come back. He wrote in 1865, "I was Surgeon-in-Chief of the 1st Division of the 1st Corps, and as such opened the first hospital for our wounded, the Lutheran Theological Seminary. The first wounded of the battle were then admitted and properly cared for." The first doctor that I'm going to talk about today actually was not likely within this building on July 1st, 1863, but his story is so great that it begs attention. This is Surgeon Abner Hard of the 8th Illinois Cavalry. Abner Hard would have been behind this building with the 8th Illinois when they camped here on the evening of June 30th, 1863. 10 days earlier, the 8th Illinois was involved at the Battle of Upperville down in the mountains of Virginia. And Surgeon Hard was dedicated to working to treat the wounded soldiers down at that battle. He wrote later on about a man in Company F, I. Pickett, who was wounded in the femoral artery. A bullet goes into his thigh and severs his femoral artery. Almost immediately, a tourniquet is placed on this soldier, and he is left to rally by the use of stimulants while other soldiers are cared for. The unit is about to move, but Soldier Pickett has not been cared for yet. And Hard recognizes that if they move him too quickly, it's going to put him in danger. So they work really fast right before they're going to move and tie off the femoral artery, and the man survives. This story is so great because it shows the procedures that had been put in place as part of the Letterman Plan, named for Medical Director of the Army of the Potomac, Jonathan Letterman, in 1862 and 1863. Emergency care given to Soldier Pickett. Triage, treating soldiers that are more grievously wounded while Pickett is left to rally by the use of stimulants. And then a quick surgery done by a qualified surgeon. Abner Hard had attended Rush Medical College in Chicago and the Medical School of Iowa. These are still things that are used today. Prompt care, triage, qualified surgeons to treat wounded soldiers and wounded civilians in the United States today. All goes back to the Civil War. As the 8th Illinois Cavalry moves off Seminary Ridge at the end of fighting on July 1st, 1863, moved down to the area of the Peach Orchard, there are still hundreds of wounded soldiers in this building. They're left in this building as the Confederates overrun Seminary Ridge at the end of fighting on July 1st, 1863. And we're going to talk about our second surgeon, Amos Blakesley, who's left here with the wounded men of his division, the 3rd Division of the 1st Corps of the Army of the Potomac. Amos Blakesley was born in Waterbury, Connecticut, and he attends Yale Medical School, again, one of those really prestigious medical schools here in the United States in the 1850s. And Amos Blakesley is left behind to care for his soldiers, but he has no supplies. As the Confederates overrun this building, they take all of the food, the water, and the medical supplies for themselves, leaving Blakesley and the other surgeons in this building without any way to care for those wounded soldiers. Lieutenant Colonel George McFarland of the 151st Pennsylvania, which is the unit that Blakesley is attached to, says, as soon as the rebels took possession of this hospital, they seized and carried off all of the instruments, chloroform, etc., and thus deprived Surgeon Blakesley and his assistants, who generously remained behind to share in the captivity and alleviate the sufferings of the wounded. By July 3rd, a heroic woman from town, Lizzie Kritzman, finds an old surgical kit in the possession of Dr. Horner in town, puts it under her dress, and brings it into the seminary hospital and gives it to Amos Blakesley. And it was only with this surgical kit that Blakesley is able to amputate George McFarland's wounded limb. George McFarland had been wounded through both legs. McFarland survives, quite possibly due to the prompt actions of Amos Blakesley and Lizzie Kritzman. Blakesley is going to muster out with his regiment, the 151st, on July 27, 1863, only less than a month after this battle, and he is going to, as family lore says, become the head surgeon for Harewood Hospital in Washington, D.C. on the gangrene floor. So he is going to continue to serve in the Army as an acting assistant surgeon through the rest of the war. Even though Blakesley leaves, there are still surgeons that are going to remain here through the summer of 1863, caring for the wounded soldiers that are in this building, too wounded to be moved. And that brings us to our third doctor, a man named James Fulton. James Fulton is born in November of 1832, only 2 months after this building is opened for classes. He is going to attend Delaware College and then go to Jefferson Medical School in Philadelphia, quite possibly the second best medical college in all of the United States in Philadelphia, Jefferson. He's going to join the 143rd Pennsylvania in Roy Stone's Bucktail Brigade in 1862. He's going to arrive here on the battlefield, the first day's battlefield at Gettysburg, about 11 o'clock in the morning on July 1st. And he is going to be sent by the medical director of the division out towards the McPherson farm on McPherson Ridge with his regiment. He is going to set up a primary aid station. These are stations that are right behind the line of battle, that if a soldier was wounded, he would know to come back to this aid station to receive quick medical care, to get a bandage, to get a tourniquet, to get some stimulants, and either be shipped back to a division field hospital for surgeries to be performed or to be sent back into the battle. As James Fulton gets out to the McPherson farm to set up this aid station, he looks around, and his hospital steward and his orderly are not with him, so he has no supplies. He comes back here to the seminary building and is then sent into town to set up hospitals for the 3rd Division of the 1st Corps, sets them up at the Presbyterian Church and the Catholic Church over towards High Street in town. As the Confederates take over the town at the end of fighting on July 1st, Fulton is captured, and he spends the next 3 days doing the best he can to help feed and bandage up wounded soldiers. After the Confederates leave, he stays in town with his wounded soldiers, even as the Army of the Potomac leaves. And he is going to stay here in Gettysburg until August 10th, serving at the Catholic hospital, and then as hospitals are consolidated, as men are sent off, moves to the courthouse hospital, and then finally here to the seminary hospital, where he stays again until August 10th of 1863. He has charge of all of the patients on the 3rd floor of this building, and he dresses their wounds daily, and he is very proud to say that not a single patient died. In August, he's going to rejoin his regiment and serve until 1864, when he's going to leave the Army and go back to Chester County and take up the profession of a country doctor. So all of these doctors contribute to the story of Seminary Ridge, the Seminary Hospital, and the Battle of Gettysburg. These were well-trained men who were still learning about the human body throughout the time that they were in the war, and would go off to do very interesting things for the rest of their life, using the knowledge that they had learned from the Civil War. I invite you to come to Seminary Ridge and hear these stories, to learn about these men, to see what they did and see how they helped to treat these wounded soldiers. This has been a very special episode of On the Ridge for National Doctors Day. My name is Pete Mealy, Executive Director of Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center. Check out our other videos where we're bringing you stories from the areas of race, religion, medicine, and war from the 19th century and beyond. And I hope to see you on the Ridge soon.